Good morning. It's really great to see so many familiar faces, but I'm also glad to see all the new faces that are here. This is the first time that we are in Maricopa, and I'm really excited that we can be here in this very thriving part of the state. And speaking of thriving, I would like to bring up my good friend and also AAED board member James Smith, who is the Economic Development Director for Pinal County, and Leo Liu, who's the county manager. They're going to come up and tell us about some of the developments in Pinal County.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Pinal County. It's great to have the fall forum here. It's been really great so far, and we're looking forward to a great conference. I get the pleasure of introducing my boss and the county manager for Pinal County, Leo Liu. So we're just going to do a few questions with Leo about economic development, some of his philosophies, and some of the things that have been going on. Leo, many of these people attending today are from other parts of the state. So can you share with them kind of some of the things that have happened in Pinal County the last 3 or 4 years?
Great, and thank you, and thanks for having me. It's my first time at one of these conferences, so it's great to be here. I've been in this role as a county manager for Pinal County for a couple of years, and I didn't have, unfortunately, economic development under me or in my realm in the past. So it's actually one of the most exciting things to be a part of, and I'm just so thankful for that, and thank you for everything that you all do. So Pinal County is just a very fortunate time and place for me and for the county. We've been experiencing tremendous growth in a variety of industries, a lot of them that you know and represent here, but everything from raw materials and mining to supply chains, semiconductor manufacturing, of course, and then we've got home furnishings, consumables, of course electric vehicle manufacturing, which you all know of, in which we landed recently one of the leading battery manufacturers in the world. And so just very thankful, of course, thousands of jobs, great jobs, and just great developments within the county.
So speaking of that, during this time the county's seen $7 billion of announcements, developments, and over 12,000 jobs announced. What do you think the driving factors are that have led to this success?
And like I said, I've been in this position 2 years, so I get to reap a lot of what others have sown in the past before me. And as you know, none of this happens by accident. Tony Smith, our former supervisor, can attest to that. The county many years ago put in our strategic planning sessions, we put economic development as a priority. We put action plans, we put goals, and I'm sure many of your cities and towns have done the same. And of course, before me, Tim Knavel was a part of developing that and a part of executing all of that. And today we get to reap a lot of those benefits. I think that Pinal County is in a very sweet spot in the state. Fortunately, we have the benefit of the developing metro areas, Phoenix and Tucson. So we get to take and benefit from your workforce. From the universities, from the skilled labor, from the professionals that you have. And we end up in the middle to where a company looking for a place to land has access to rail, close international airports, interstates, and of course, so importantly, the workforce. So we can check, as you all know, when a company is looking to land, especially a major project, they've got this comprehensive list of things that they need checked off and things that give them a competitive advantage. And so we're lucky to have a combination of, because we're growing, large available land for those types of things, and access to all the resources, infrastructure-wise, workforce-wise, that a company would need. So, and I would say that to people in this room that know Arizona Commerce Authority and the cities and towns, utility companies, we work really closely together and we collaborate, and if there's any gaps that we find as we're sitting down with these companies and developing these plans and proposals, we all work together creatively to find, to make sure we could bridge those gaps.
So what are some of the challenges that come as a result of this that you've talked about? What are the challenges that the county's facing as a result of the growth?
Well, I think sort of ironically, I think that for Pinal County, it's been more of our challenges of growth originally occurred with residential. So we were one of the fastest growing counties in the nation, over the housing boom. And that brought a lot of people who were essentially coming to live, could afford a nice house with a big backyard for their family, and then they drive and go to work somewhere else. And so our challenge really was around roads, of course, and local amenities for all of these families, and local jobs. We have probably still about 75% of our residents traveling outside of the county to work. So economic development for us is more of our goal than it is a challenge. It's more of something that is meeting one of our challenges. But of course, with that, roads and workforce. And I think for us, workforce, we partner with the colleges and the stakeholders and the groups and the schools to try to make sure they have curriculum and programs that are helping people be ready for what these employers need.
Yeah, and one of the things when I first started in the position was really encouraging is this goal of really reducing the number of people who are having to leave the county to work. And so hopefully we can someday bring it to a point where anybody who wants to work in Pinal County can find a job. So what are some of the greatest opportunities? You've already kind of hit on a few, but are there a few other opportunities that you see going forward?
Yeah, land is, I think, our biggest opportunity. As you all know, we have savvy landowners, brokers. We have large available land close to infrastructure. So I think that's our greatest opportunity. I mean, obviously, with the interstates, we got Eloy, along the 10. We have all the areas around Casa Grande, and really, here in Maricopa, in the west side of the county, there is so much land to be developed and annexed. It'll be bigger than Santan, as we go down the road. So the west side, there's just so much availability of growth, and then of course, on the east side, we have all of the mining going on, which is great. And then what I still consider east, but really kind of the middle of the county, is what some refer to as the Blue Sea. And we refer to it as the Blue Sea because it's state land, and state land ownership is represented in blue on one of our land maps. So it's 35% of the county. I mean, you got Superstition Vistas that, when that comes to fruition, will be probably the biggest master plan, residential in the state. You got the 24 that's going to continue east, as it passes Queen Creek and then keeps going and meets up to the 60. That's going to be a great corridor. Then, of course, it meets with the north-south, and that goes all the way from Gold Canyon all the way down to Coolidge, Eloy, to the 10. So those, in the long run, the growth opportunities there are phenomenal.
And can you share some of the things that the county and some of the communities have done to stay ahead of infrastructure to support the growth that we're seeing, that we hope to get in the future?
Yeah, again, roads tend to be the biggest one, but if you don't have entitlements, roads, utilities, those kind of things, you're not even on the list. And so whenever there's a project, we partner with the local city, especially in a growing county like ours. It's not all, half of our population is still unincorporated. So cities have planning areas, and usually these things are happening maybe on the edge of the city. And so we work closely with them on projects to make sure the road needs are met for example, around the Lucid campus, around Kohler, where they landed. Same with the Inland Port of Arizona and Coolidge. As companies are looking to these and landing there, we're partnering with the city to make sure that the roads are developed in a way that they need, railroad crossings and things like that. The Regional Transportation Plan, Pinal Regional Transportation Authority Plan, is $1 billion, much more than $1 billion, really, by the time they're all built, of roadway infrastructure throughout the county, north, south, east, west, and connections to the interstates. So that's our biggest, most significant plan.
So you talked a little bit about these partnerships and with the cities and towns to build roads to accommodate the growth. You've been really aggressive with some of our economic development
projects. Can you share a little bit about your philosophy on economic development and facilitating these projects?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just so you all, I come from a finance background, CPA and major in business, and so and being in local government as a local government manager, I think economic development, of course, is really the cornerstone of the foundation of what we do, because how are we going to fund law enforcement, parks and rec, quality of life, the kind of cultural and arts and entertainment that we all want in our communities, and economic development is really the way to do it. And so when you talk about these manufacturing companies and we talk about the jobs that people have to leave the county to work, for every one of those jobs, 3 to 5 are induced, and everything else that comes with it. And so for me, I think the work that you all do is one of the most important pillars of local government. And so so then my philosophy and approach is to be very aggressive in it, because they're investments. They're not just expenditures. And businesses, and maybe some of you have heard this, especially some of the elected officials, but businesses tend to be net contributors to the government so that we can provide these services and quality of life amenities, while just residents tend to be net consumers of government. And so one of the things that the county struggled with was having a really low net assessed property value per capita, per person, which then is a cycle, because your tax rate has to be a little bit higher, and so that's going to be a little bit less competitive. So a great example would be what you all did in Chandler over all those many years. You got a city like Chandler who's, I think, now about 280,000 people, and your net assessed value for your properties are greater than Pinal County's, when Pinal County's got about 450,000 people and like 5,000 square miles compared to smaller Chandler. So I think that's a great example of how a community would balance with industry and a healthy lifestyle and a great community. And so that's what we're trying to aim for as well. So to your point of your second question about facilitating, and maybe I could just tell a couple of stories, and maybe this is helpful for you all in the business that know. So when we're facilitating these, at least for me as I've gotten in here, and I think those before me have always been supportive, is trying to find out wherever the gaps are to make this thing work. And Lucid we all hear about, and it is great, and some people know parts of the story, but just that as an example, you got a situation where you had probably 7 or 8 different landowners, farmers, others that needed to compile this piece where they wanted to be. And for them, of course, there's not a lot of surety. Are we going to be able to compile all of these landowners, close this deal, and be able to actually build this factory and do all these things there? And they're a startup too, right, at the time. And so you got a typical OEM manufacturer who's going to want 2,000 acres, but they got to take it in steps. So we're looking at 500 acres. They're ready to walk out because they don't think the land could be secured. So the county said, well, why don't we make sure that we compile the land for you, secure it, we'll lease it to you for 4 years while you're building up, and then in 4 years you buy it from us and take it. And that's what enabled them to be here and kept them here. They would have walked, because if you don't have land surety. And so they developed fantastic. They exceeded expectations. They just bought the land, so now they're ready to further move on and have a real OEM campus, almost 2,000 acres. You got a hot land market. You got all these people trying to grab these pieces, and they want it right there. And so we work with them again to compile the rest, over 1,300 acres, and do the very same thing so they can continue to expand and build here versus somewhere else in the world or somewhere else in the nation. Probably another good example, to that point, obviously Drive 48 was very instrumental in their training of their workforce. They've trained over 2,000 people, and the residents are really thriving from that. But LG Energy Solutions was a very similar thing, where we're talking about new technology. So they come in here, and where are we going to get the skilled workforce and the people that know how to do this? I mean, even with installing machinery, I mean, they got to bring people in to do that, because it's equipment that people in our country aren't even familiar with yet. So working with them and understanding that gap, we proposed to build them a training center at another location in Central Arizona College up in Apache Junction, so that those people can come through, be introduced to the company, get trained, and be productive in their factory. So those are just 2 examples, but our approach is essentially wherever there's a gap and a need that's missing in the process, we'll work to figure it out.
So you can tell I'm pretty excited to work with this guy. I love his philosophy on economic development. Thank you, Leo, and thanks to the committee and for AAD for giving us a chance to just share what's going on with Pinal County for a few minutes, and we hope you have a great conference. Thank you.